Welcome! In this episode of Coolgrad videos, we're going to talk about how to find the best housing options at your university. So most of you have got an offer of admission from your university and you have mostly finalized and accepted an offer, and now you've probably got your visa too, you're planning to travel abroad, and where you're going to live is a very important decision to make. In this video, we're going to talk about tons of mistakes that people have made when it comes to housing. I'm going to advise you about how to find the best apartments and what kind of a place to live in close to the university. This is a very important factor which can affect your peace of mind. If you don't find the right housing, it can really affect your performance at the university. So join me and I'm going to give you a wealth of information related to housing. So, how to find a good apartment? Your seniors at the university are the best people to guide you about housing. Why don't you contact your seniors either by email or phone? Usually if you're Indian, there is something called an Indian Students Association. You can get in touch with the ISA members or the president and ask for seniors of your own department. Remember, you have to find an apartment that's close to the department. Not necessarily just within the university campus or close to the university campus, because remember, some university campuses can be squares of miles across. They can be like really big. So you have to live kind of close to the department, usually preferably within walking distance to the department. And it's important to find a nice clean house that is also affordable and has good maintenance. So your seniors are the best people to advise you about housing. But you can also do your research on the internet. For example, if you're going to Rice University in Houston, or you're going to the University of Maryland in College Park, all you have to do is go to Google Maps and look at all the apartments close by. And then you can ask your seniors, and you can also see their apartment websites, and you can have an idea of the cost of living and what the rents are, what the size of the apartment is. Sometimes you can even see the floor plans. You can do your own research and also consult with your seniors. So, before you finalize which apartment to take, ask the seniors if the apartment maintenance and service is good. Because you don't want to get stuck in a place that has too many insects or bed bugs or roaches, or you don't want to get stuck in a place that's known to have plumbing problems. These factors can really affect your peace of mind. So why don't you ask your seniors about the maintenance of the apartment? It doesn't have to be a brand new apartment. Sometimes apartments are really old, but if they are maintained well, that's good enough actually. So don't just be too picky and don't waste your time trying to find the perfect apartment. Most apartments are decent, and just take the advice of your seniors and pick one that they advise you as decent. So, what are the factors to consider while selecting housing? One of the most important factors is proximity to the university. You don't want to waste like half an hour or an hour a day in travel. It's just not worth it. It's better you live close to your workplace, the department, and where you spend only like a few minutes traveling to your workplace. And one of the other most important factors is the size of the apartment. Do you want to live like in a studio by yourself, or you want to live in a one-bed, one-bath apartment, or would you rather live like in a two-bed, two-bath apartment, share it with somebody? You got to think about these factors. You don't want to get stuck in a pigeonhole. You want to make sure it's a comfortable apartment. And then you have to worry about the cost and the rent. It depends on the affordability, right? Depending on how much you can afford, you have to make trade-offs. So then the other important thing is the laundry. So some apartments have a washer dryer inside the apartment, and I think that's cool. I'm now in a stage where I can't imagine having a washer dryer outside somewhere in the common facility. But as students, we've all been through that. So usually in like an apartment complex, there is a washer dryer somewhere else, like in a common facility for multiple houses, multiple apartments. So we had to carry all the laundry every week in the laundry bag and take the detergent out there. And sometimes if it's a snowy place, like we had to take, put on our gloves and boots and all the winter clothes and just to go to the laundry. And then if you leave your laundry in there, somebody else comes and takes it off. If you don't take it out on time, a lot of problems, okay, related to laundry. If you can afford an apartment that has a washer dryer inside it, go for it. But otherwise, be prepared to get a laundry cart, or buy some quarters, depending on how it's set up. You have to carry your laundry all the way there and do your laundry every week. So, and then there is something called maintenance, which is really, really important. It depends on the leasing office, how efficient they are, how courteous they are, and how promptly they respond to your problems, whether it's related to your gas stove or your electric stove, or any problems in the kitchen, or insects, or bed bugs, or plumbing problems, or clogged sinks. We need maintenance. So that's a very important factor. And then parking. So if you have a car, of course, that's a very important factor to consider. It's important to have a safe parking spot. And if you don't have a car, that's not so important. But if you have a bike, you've got to make sure you park your bike in a safe place too. So that's another important thing to consider. And lease terms. Now that's important, but most apartments that are close to the university offer lease terms of 1 semester. So once you're in there, at the end of the semester, you have an option to give them 1 month notice and let them know you're vacating, or you have to, extend your lease every semester. That's usually the way it works, spring, summer, and fall semesters. Another factor is safety and neighbors. Make sure you're in an apartment that has enough safety and the neighbors are not dangerous people, they're not drug addicts, they're not running a meth lab in their apartments. You've got to make sure it's a safe place. And you have to make sure it has some common facilities such as a gym, a clubhouse. Well, you can manage without a gym and a clubhouse because most universities have gyms. But, some people really care about having a good swimming pool. Most universities have swimming pools too, so that's really not a major factor, but some people like it. And the landscape, the leasing office, these are some facilities. I've seen some apartments where the leasing office is like remote, meaning that if you have maintenance or something, the guy's sitting somewhere else, you don't even know where he's sitting. And you can only reach him by phone, and they never answer your phone calls. I've seen a lot of such problems happen to people. So it's important to pick an apartment where there's a leasing office right there, so you can approach them. And somebody is obliged to be sitting there. And another factor is pollution. You don't want to get stuck in a place that's next to like a chemical factory, or which is polluted by so many other ways. These factors really affect your peace of mind sometimes. So let's take a detailed look at all these factors. So first one is live close to your workplace. It's just not worth wasting time in traveling up and down for half an hour or an hour each day. If you have an option to pay $100 or $200 more just so you can live closer to your department, just go for it. It's worth it, believe me. Even if you have a car, a really nice car, why would you want to waste your money and time in traveling and also parking if you have an option wherein you can live close to the university? I mean, if you haven't yet finalized your housing, just pick one that's closer. If you're buying a house, it's a different question. But if you're just renting a place, mostly students rent a place, then proximity is like one of the most important factors when it comes to housing. Live close to the workplace. And as I mentioned earlier, live close to your department. For example, if you're going to Stanford University has a huge campus that spreads across like, many, many miles. So the computer science department may be very far away from the mechanical department, and that might be very far away from the business school. So depending on which program you're pursuing, make sure you live close to your workplace, that is close to the department. Okay? Somebody might tell you, hey, I've got an apartment to rent and I'm looking for a roommate. It's on the Stanford University campus. But it might be at the other end of the campus and it might take you like half an hour to get there by your bicycle. So you don't want to get stuck there. I'm saying if you have another option, another apartment that's just like 5 minutes from your department, well, I would think about taking that apartment. So live close to your department. And then don't opt to live far from your workplace just because the apartment is beautiful, or because it overlooks a lake, or because you like that apartment, or because your boyfriend or girlfriend is living close to that place, or because you have friends there, or because it overlooks a stadium or a beach. Remember, you are going abroad with a goal, a mission, which is to graduate successfully from your program. So live close to your workplace, focus on your work, and graduate successfully. These are factors that you can worry about later in life when you're like buying a house or something. As a student, your focus should be to excel in academics, and living close to the workplace helps you perform better in your academics. So the size and types of housing. So a studio is usually a single room with a closet, a kitchenette, and a bathroom. So there's no separate room as such. It's just one big room with a closet, a kitchenette, and a bathroom. There's no separate bedroom as such. For one person, a studio is like more than sufficient. Usually there's a bed in one corner of the studio room. It might even be a queen size or a king size bed or a single bed. Depends on what they offer and what you opt for. But there's usually more than enough space to store all your belongings, and usually there's a kitchenette, meaning there's not like a huge pantry or storage space, but there's just enough space for storing all your utensils, your cooking stuff, and your groceries. And there's a convenient bathroom usually and a closet. So a studio is more than enough for a person. But usually a studio costs more than sharing a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment, with another person. For example, let's say a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment costs about $1,000 in a particular city. A 2-bed, 2-bath apartment might cost about $1,400, but a studio might cost about $800. But if you're sharing the 1-bed, 1-bath apartment with another person, then you'll be paying only $500 per head, so that works out cheaper. If you're sharing the 2-bed, 2-bath apartment with another person, then that would cost about $700 per head, which is still cheaper than a studio. That's usually, like say, the way it works. Generally, I'm giving you an idea of the way the different types of apartments are priced. But if you're in the studio by yourself, you can have a lot of peace of mind. And living in a studio by yourself is cheaper than living in a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment by yourself. And a studio is more than enough for one person. I've seen a lot of retired people, CEOs, a lot of people who used to live in big houses. They can't maintain these houses sometimes, and they just opt to downsize and live in a studio happily with very little maintenance. So if you want peace of mind, you want to be by yourself, a studio is a very good place to be in. So what is a condo? You might have come across this term, a condo. A condo is usually an apartment or a house, but you don't have complete ownership of the house. Meaning, for example, if you purchase a condo, you can't remodel it. You only own the space between the walls. You don't really own the walls and the windows. Meaning, you can't break the walls and remodel the kitchen and remodel. Sometimes you can remodel the interiors of a condo, but not the exterior. That is usually what a condo is and how it's different from a single family house. If you buy a house, you can probably get some permits and remodel it, but not with a condo. So, but if you're renting, for all practical purposes, a condo is just like another house or an apartment, because most renters are not going to be remodeling anyway. So, a condo is a commonly used term for an apartment or a house. An apartment is a group of houses, adjacent or close to each other, usually at least 2 or more stories, usually, and with a leasing office and common facilities such as a swimming pool, a clubhouse, gym, laundry, etc. And it's usually one complex. That's usually an apartment complex. What is a townhouse? It's usually a multi-storied house. It doesn't have to be multi-storied, it can even be a single floor storied house. Townhouses are usually adjacent to other houses in a row, like they share a compound wall usually. So, a single family home, that's like an independent house for a single family. So these are the different types of housing. But most students are going to be thinking about apartments, condos, or studios. Cost and rent of an apartment. So that's an important factor. It depends on how much you can afford. We all need money, whether it comes from your parents or somebody else supporting you, or a bank loan, or the university giving you a stipend, or fellowship, or scholarship. depending on what your source of income is, depends on how much you can afford to pay for housing. But even if you're financially crunched, what I'm telling you is it's worth paying $50 to $100 more for peace of mind. If you are sharing a room with somebody, believe me, it's going to cause a lot of problems. Every human being deserves at least like one bedroom and a bathroom for himself. Sharing a kitchen is okay. But think about, try and getting like, say, a one bed, one bath apartment. I've seen people like, one person takes the living room and the other person takes the bedroom. And so they have some degree of privacy and they share the bathroom and the kitchen. That's okay. It saves rent. Because most students who go abroad are going to be calculating every dollar. So they want to, save money. So you can also think about getting a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment or a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment and sharing it with one more person to save money. So, but remember, where there is sharing, there will be problems. Whether it's sharing the kitchen or the bathroom. If you're sharing, be prepared for some hardships. Most of the time, there's going to be problems. And if you have a bedroom and a bathroom for yourself abroad, you can consider it quite a luxury actually. Most students who go abroad suffer a lot with roommates and with sharing kitchens and bathrooms and even apartments. In one of my other videos, I'm going to be talking exclusively about roommates and roommate related problems. In this video, I'm going to be focusing mainly on the housing itself, not necessarily about roommates. So now we're going to talk about another important factor, that is washer and dryer inside an apartment. So laundry is an important factor. I remember a long time back, like in say 1980s and 90s, when my uncles were doing their PhDs in the United States, in top-notch universities, they had common laundry facilities where they had to take an appointment to do laundry. They had to book it like a few days in advance and go there exactly at the allotted time, do their laundry and come back. It was such a pain. When I've been a student, from the past few years, so mostly we had apartment complexes where there was a common facility, and in some places we had to have quarters, like say $2 for washing and $2 for drying, for example. So you had to put in 8 quarters each time for washing and about 8 quarters each time for drying. A quarter is like 25 cents in America. So we had to have quarters all the time. So every time we went to grocery stores, we would ask them for quarters and collect quarters and keep. And then you realize one day you want to do laundry, you don't have quarters, so you have to beg people. Or sometimes we would go to the bank and get like 100 quarters and have it stuck, so we could always have enough quarters to do laundry. So usually you'll see a lot of students having all their laundry collected in laundry bags and carrying the detergent and laundry all the way to the common laundry facility, and once in a week or once in 2 weeks, and then you put it in the washer, and then you got to go down again and put it in the dryer. And sometimes if you haven't taken it out of the washer on time, somebody else takes out your clothes and dumps it somewhere. These things happen all the time. If you can get an apartment that has a washer dryer inside the apartment, it's worth it. Even if you're paying $50 more, it's worth it, believe me. So, well, it's not so bad to do laundry in a common facility, but it depends on how crowded the apartment is and how many apartments are sharing the laundry facility. So, like in one of my universities, there were like 6 houses in a block, 6 apartments in a block, and they had one common laundry facility with 2 washers and 2 dryers for 6 houses, 6 apartments. So that wasn't too bad at all. We never really had to, spend too much time waiting for a washer or dryer to be available. And we would do our laundry like on the weekdays in the evenings, just to avoid the rush hours, during weekends. So laundry facilities charge this amount sometimes, and in some apartments you must get a laundry card. So the apartment leasing office issues it sometimes, and sometimes there's usually like a vending machine. You have to pay $5 or $10 and you buy a laundry card, and then you keep charging the card every time, and each time you use the card it deducts $2 or $3. And if you're using quarters, sometimes we've had experiences where the washer or dryer just swallows the quarters and doesn't do the washing or drying. So these things happen all the time. So if you have a washer dryer inside the apartment, and if it's like $25–50 extra, it's worth it, more than worth it, believe me. If I had my life to live over again, I would probably pick an apartment which has laundry shared just among a few apartments, or which has a washer dryer inside the apartment. And sometimes, like, you can lease a washer dryer from a store. Like, there are stores like maybe Fry's, or so many other stores which lease out washing machines, washers and dryers, and you can actually store it if there is a plug point in the apartment. You have to take permission from the apartment, of course, and you have to make sure everything is done right, because you don't want like water flooding all over the apartment and destroying the apartments. They can actually sue you and charge you for maintenance. So if you can lease a washer dryer and have it inside your apartment, go for it. Usually it doesn't cost that much to lease it, and then you can return it. So that's another option. So as I mentioned earlier, we can get a lot of quarters from a bank. You can get like 100, 200 quarters at once and store it if you have to use quarters. So maintenance. Most apartments usually provide maintenance that is protection against insects, bed bugs. Bed bugs are a goddamn nuisance. Sometimes they come from nowhere. Sometimes your neighbors have insects or bed bugs and they come into your apartment, and they are a goddamn nuisance. So if the apartment doesn't provide good maintenance, you will have to get it fumigated yourself. They have to come and smoke the entire apartment out, and make you wash all your clothes and your bed sheets and your everything, and then after 3 or 4 times of fumigating, usually they're gone. So bed bugs are like a big nuisance. It happened to me once, and if the apartment doesn't provide good maintenance, then you're in deep soup. There can be all kinds of insects, spiders, roaches. Roaches is another goddamn nuisance. Sometimes it's happened to us once, like in Arizona. The neighbor had thousands and thousands of roaches, and apparently the guy didn't care. There were all these, tiny German cockroaches. They were like roaming all over his apartment, and he didn't care. And they came into our apartment, and we wondered from where they came. And so they came and sprayed the bug spray and then killed all of them. And within a week, we had thousands of them again. And then we realized it's coming from the neighbor's plumbing system. So they had to first tackle the neighbor's roaches, and then it solved our problems. They can be really disgusting. So you have to make sure the apartment provides good maintenance. And before you move into the apartment, why don't you check for insects, roaches, bed bugs, and if you find the slightest trace that it hasn't been cleaned well enough, or disinfected or treated for insects, you got to make the apartment do it all over again before you move in, or else tell them you're not moving in. So apartments also provide maintenance related to plumbing, sinks, commode or bathtub clogs, and water leakage. So if you have plumbing problems, most people don't know how to fix it themselves. It's good to have maintenance come and do it for you. Usually it's done free of cost in apartments. But if you are getting a plumber by yourself, it's going to cost you quite some money, which is like a lot of money for a student. Mold and fungus. So usually in the bathrooms, you get mold, fungus. If it's on the bathtub, or if it's on the floor somewhere, you could slip and fall. And they can also attract a lot of insects and diseases and problems. Usually maintenance also cleans them all for free. And apartments also provide maintenance for walls, windows, shelves, and paint damage. You can bring it up to the apartment and they can come and fix it up for you for free. Kitchen stove issues, smoke and fire alarms. Most of these apartments have smoke alarms and fire alarms, and don't ever tamper with them. It's not worth it, because it's a legal offense to mess with a fire alarm. And remember, most houses like in the West, especially in the United States, are made of wood, so they're highly flammable. So if there's problems with the kitchen stove, like the electric coil is not working or the gas stove is not working right, the apartment fixes it for free. Carpet and floor damage. If the carpet is damaged, the apartment will charge you for maintenance, unless it was damaged beforehand. So before moving into an apartment, why don't you inspect it and make sure the carpet is not damaged, make sure the walls are not damaged, make sure the furniture is not damaged. Usually they give you a checklist at the time of moving in, and if anything is damaged, you've got to let them know at the beginning so that they don't charge you at the time of vacating. This is an important thing to do. And if you have noise complaints, your neighbors are having parties all the time and you're not able to study and there's noise complaints, people screaming, whatever, the apartment maintenance is supposed to tackle these issues free of cost. In the worst case, you can call 911, but it has its own risks. But usually, the apartment maintenance tackles these issues free of cost. Parking issues. Sometimes somebody is occupied your parking spot, they're parking their car there without letting you know. If you have a car, you're supposed to inform your apartment that this is your car number and they give you a tag. And you're supposed to park in the designated spot alone. And then safety and security issues. So if you see something suspicious happening, or if somebody is trying to break into these apartments all the time, you might not want to live in that kind of an apartment. And you've got to make sure you have good neighbors too. I mean, in some places where the unemployment rates are high, or the crime rates are high, you got to think about whether you want to move in there. And then apartment maintenance usually have like safety patrols, so they keep patrolling the place at night and even during daytime, and they are supposed to ensure your safety. And shoveling snow around the apartments in cold areas. In areas where it snows, they shovel the snow, and they're supposed to salt the roads so the ice melts. And usually apartments do this free of cost. If you're living in an independent house, you'll probably have to shovel the snow yourself, not on the street but in the driveway. And cleaning the roads, the sidewalks, and the dumpsters. They are responsible for maintaining the dumpsters and the sidewalks. They're also responsible for maintaining the swimming pools, the gym, and the clubhouse. So usually apartments provide a lot of maintenance, and these are important factors. It's important to have good maintenance. And apartment leasing offices also provide these items free of cost, so you can maintain your apartment yourself. So if you have metal plates for electric coil stubs, they replace them like free of cost. And then vacuum suction tools to unclog commodes, that also is supplied usually free of cost. Sticks with bristles, it's like a stick like this that's got bristles on the sides. If you put it into the sink and pull it out, usually whatever is clogging the sink, whether it's hair or whatever, it usually pulls it out along with the stick. They give you a stick like this, and they give you all these tools free of cost if you ask for it, so you don't have to waste money buying it. They give you equipment to unclog your sink and bathtubs and all this stuff. Usually they give it to you free of cost. Parking facility. Some apartments offer covered parking in a garage. It is the safest, but it can be congested inside a garage. So remember, if you have a car, parking is important. There's like a closed door garage. So usually it's for 1 car per garage or 2 cars per garage. So if you go in there, it's usually very narrow and there's less space. You've got to be very careful and slow while entering a garage. So it once happened to me. I went on a long drive, came back, and I was just turning into the garage, and the front right of my car just hit the wall. And the door of the garage was like damaged. Luckily I had renter's insurance, otherwise it would cost me thousands of dollars to get that door fixed. Usually apartments have something called renter's insurance. You might be paying about $10 or $20 every month. But any problem, if you cause a fire, or if you damage the carpet, or you break the wall, or you hit the car into the garage, or something happens, then the apartment renter's insurance will take care of it. But if you don't have insurance, it will cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars. So if you have renter's insurance, go for it. We all need insurance. I mean, we don't know what might go wrong. Especially when you have a car, it's like maintaining a white elephant. There could be 100 things that could go wrong. We need vehicle insurance, and we need also renter's insurance in this situation. Apartments might be gated or non-gated. Gated is definitely safer. So what this means is the entire apartment complex is protected by a gate with security, or like a security code. So unless you enter the code, they won't let you in. There might be people sitting there monitoring the gate, or there may not be anybody there. Usually they may not be monitored, but unless you have a security code, you can't get in and your car can't get in, usually. So it's definitely much safer but they usually cost a little more. And you can also have a covered parking in an open space. At least it protects the car from heat, rain, ice and snow. So what this means is there's an open spot and there's a covering on the top. So they usually allot you a spot in sometimes. So that spot is okay. If it's a gated community, you're still quite safe. And it protects your car from ice and snow. In cold places, that's a big problem. If you're leaving your car in the open, be prepared to have like 1 foot of snow on top of the car, you know, every day. And it's all like frozen and the car doesn't start. It's a big headache actually. In cold climate, it's very important to have covered parking. And usually within a closed garage. And even if you have covered parking outside, it makes your car engine go slower and the car doesn't start and all these problems happen. So a very slight chance of getting your car stolen if the apartment is in a gated community. Gated community, there's very little chance that anybody will actually break in and steal your car. But if it's in a covered garage, it's definitely much safer. But even in some of the safest places, if your car is in an open spot and it's not a gated apartment, there are thieves, there are people who come and steal cars. People keep, you know, watching out for cars that haven't been used in a while. These things happen all the time. I live in one of the safest neighborhoods in California, but we've had break-ins to apartments in broad daylight. We've had cars getting stolen. We've had bikes getting stolen at universities. It happened even in some of the best universities of the world. So sometimes they just detach a wheel and take it away. Sometimes they, you know, cut the tube, like if you're parking your bike, they usually, you know, chain it with like a tube, but that's not good enough. They actually cut the tube and take the bike away. It's happened to a lot of people. You have to use like a metal chain to lock your bikes. And car thefts are actually quite common in the West too, in America. They happen a lot. So trust in God, but lock your car and make sure the car is safe, okay? So there are very strict rules about residents parking in unassigned open spaces. So you have a spot in an apartment. If you have a car, you've got to let the leasing office know. They give you a spot, you've got to park only in that spot. If you take somebody else's spot, they can just call 911 and, you know, have your car towed away. And it's going to cost you a few $100s to get your car back. And if you have people visiting you, make sure they don't park in an unassigned spot. You got to only park in an open spot. I've had this happen to one of my classmates. Her sister came to visit her, and by the time they went out after a couple of hours, the car was gone. Somebody had towed it away. So you got to be very careful about these things. So sometimes in certain apartments, you can park in a certain spot for 4 or 6 days at a stretch. And then you must refrain from parking for the next 4 to 6 days. So, for example, if you have 2 cars, if you're family, so 1 car and you have only 1 spot. Or like, you know, if it's like if you don't have a spot assigned for your car, for whatever reason, you can't park in an open spot like every single day just because it's available. There are rules about how many days you can park continuously, and then you cannot park for a few days. There are all these rules, otherwise your car will get towed away. So when you go abroad, make sure you get familiar with all these rules. Talk to your seniors, they are the best people to educate you. So leasing terms in an apartment. So there's 12-month lease, 9-month lease, 6-month lease, 3-month lease, and then month-to-month lease. Usually these are the common leasing terms. So 12-month lease is usually the least expensive. You know, in some apartments, regardless of how long you're going to stay, the rent is the same. But in a lot of apartments, if you take a 12-month lease, a longer lease, the rent is lowered. If you take a 6-month lease, they charge you a little more. If you take a 3-month lease, it costs slightly more. And if you take a month-to-month lease, it's like usually the most expensive. So, for example, if a 12-month lease costs $1,500 per month in rent, a 6-month lease might cost $1,650, for example. And a month-to-month lease might cost $1,800 per month. So they charge more because they know you're not going to stay for very long. You can renew the lease terms, of course. You know, suppose you got a project in a particular city and you're thinking about how long to take the leasing terms because you're not sure how long the project will last. I would advise you to take a 12-month lease most of the time, because even if you break a 12-month lease in between, if the apartment leasing office can get somebody else to take over the lease within about 10 days or 15 days, then they usually refund you the rest of the money. Usually at the time of vacating any apartment, you have to give them a 1 month notice. Regardless of when your lease is expiring, you have to give them a 1 month notice. So you continue to pay your rent till the end of the next month. Suppose you gave your notice today that you're going to vacate in the month. You pay the rent for 1 more month, and you also pay the lease breakage fees. That is usually stipulated at the time of signing the lease. It's usually more than 1 month's rent. Suppose your monthly rent is $1,000. The lease breakage fee might be $1,200. So if you stay till the end, suppose you've signed a lease for 12 months. Suppose at the end of 11 months you give them a notice saying, I'm going to vacate at the end of my lease term. And then you vacate exactly when your lease expires. Then you don't have to pay any lease breakage fees. But if you vacate 3 months earlier, then you have to pay the 1 month rent and also the lease breakage fees. But what I'm trying to tell you is many apartments offer some kind of compensation. It's like if they can find someone else to take over the lease. Usually if you advertise on websites like Craigslist or Suleka.com, you might find someone to take over the lease. It's quite easy actually, and it depends on your luck too. And if they take over the lease, then you usually don't have to pay the lease breakage fees. So regardless of how long the project might be, I would usually take a long-term lease because the rent is cheaper and you never know when the project is going to end anyways. So it's like, as I mentioned earlier, it's good to take a longer term lease if it is less expensive. And security deposit. Apartments may charge anywhere from $100 to $1,000 or more as a security deposit initially, because if you cause any damage, then they will charge you for it. And the apartments bear the cleaning expenses at their own cost before renting it out to another tenant. But usually they refund only part of the security deposit. Some apartments refund the entire security deposit if the apartment was returned in the same condition that it was occupied in. It happened to me in Arizona. I mean, I was quite clean and my roommate was also clean, and we kept the house really clean and we got back every single penny of the deposit. And then there was another roommate who didn't, clean the apartment. My roommate, she didn't clean the kitchen, whatever. And the bathroom was still, the sink was dirty, the bathtub was dirty at the time of leaving the apartment. So they didn't give me back a single penny. It was a $500 deposit and we lost the entire money because my roommate didn't clean it. This happens all the time. So to get the security deposit back, you must clean the entire apartment, including restrooms, vacuuming the carpets, floors and the tiles, kitchen, stove, sink, pantry and shelves, walls and windows, so no scribbling, no paint cracks. Usually if the paint is damaged, people fill it up with like toothpaste or some kind of white cement or some kind of white paint, just so they're not charged for it. Because for every scratch they charge you like $5, or every crack they charge you like $200 or something like that. They have all these rules listed out. So for every crack on the sink counter, like in the bathroom or something, they might charge you $100. For every scratch on the kitchen surface, they might charge you $10. I mean, it really depends. So usually people, students and residents, before vacating, they try to fix all these minor problems themselves using toothpaste and white paint and all these things before they vacate the apartment. So you also have to remember to clean the garage, the patio, the washer and dryer, all these things if it's included. So many students lose money because their roommates don't clean their apartment or because they didn't clean it. It's happened to all of us who've been abroad. Safety and neighbors. If your neighbors are unemployed youth, you may have a greater chance of getting robbed. And if you don't want noisy, rambunctious, irresponsible neighbors, you better talk to your neighbors before you move in. I mean, usually it's not such a big problem and you can always complain to the leasing office, but you don't want to get stuck with noisy roommates. So it's good to talk to your neighbors, who's living here, hey, I'm going to be moving in here. It's okay to have an introduction and before you move in. And it's been empirically shown that in areas with more unemployed population, whether it's Hispanic or black or Indian or whichever, or even white, okay, if there is a lot of unemployed people and a lot of crime prone areas like in Washington DC or like in Phoenix, which is infamous for illegal drug trading. So in such areas there's huge crime rate, and I would be careful about where I take a house in any of these areas. But even in some of the most resident friendly areas, safest areas, you have to be on your guard, okay? It's happened, I've seen robberies happen in broad daylight in some of the safest neighborhoods. So, for example, in the Bay Area in California, Cupertino, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, San Jose, Milpitas, Fremont, these areas in the Bay Area are considered much more resident friendly and safe compared to Hayward or Union City. I live in the Bay Area, and it's like I've been to these places looking for apartments, and I could clearly tell that these places are much more safer compared to like Hayward or Union City. So if you're seeing neighborhoods with like broken cars or really old and cheap cars, and you're seeing people with yards with all the junk stuff strewn about, and you see like a poor neighborhood, you can tell when a family is not doing very well, or the people, the occupants are not very careful with how they're keeping their house, and how you can probably tell how well off they are. So if you're in a poor neighborhood and a lot of unemployed people, your chances of being unsafe are much higher. So robberies can happen even in the safest neighborhood. Trust in God, but lock your car, lock your house, and make sure you're safe. Common facilities at the apartment: gym, swimming pool, clubhouse, leasing office, shared laundry, landscape gardens. These are important factors, but it really doesn't matter to a student. You're going there for the first time. Most students are only interested in saving every penny, and they don't really care about landscape gardens. But if an apartment has it, well, good. Renter's insurance. So it costs about $10–20 per month. Even if the leasing office doesn't insist on it, it's good you have it, because whatever damage you do, the renter's insurance will take care of it. So it happened to me once. One of my roommates damaged the carpet, and it cost me $550 to replace it, and I had to bear it because she cheated me. And so some kids come visiting you and they scribble and on the walls, whatever, and then you have to pay for it in the end. Somebody bangs their car into your garage, and if you can't prove that it wasn't you, then you might be asked to pay thousands of dollars. Suppose you bring bed bugs into the apartment, and they might charge you up to like $2,000 for fumigation if you take accountability. If you say, yes, it was me who brought the bed bugs, it can cost about $2,000 sometimes for fumigation. So if you have renter's insurance, you can save yourself from a lot of problems. Not all, but a lot of problems. So sometimes if you're in a furnished apartment, you have to make sure the furniture is also intact. Paying guest accommodation. There are lots of Indian families out there, especially like Gujarati families and also other families, which offer PG, that's paying guest accommodation, for students, working professionals, and even for couples. A lot of these people are really nice. They also offer you food for a small amount. I once lived with as a paying guest in a Gujarati family's house in close to Irvine in Southern California. So they were really nice. They would have all these rotis and dal chawal and all this food, and they would tell me, have as much as you want, and for just like $100 a month, I guess, they were giving me dinner free of cost, which was like cool. So I could just have lunch somewhere else, and I didn't even have to cook, and I was like really happy. It depends. Not all of them are nice, but it gave me a separate room and a bathroom, and it was with a TV, and so it was very comfortable. So if you have a nice family, PG accommodation can be nice, but some of them can also make your life hell. Furnished or unfurnished apartment. So if you find a furnished apartment, it's going to cost more. An unfurnished apartment, you can actually manage. If you get an unfurnished apartment, and then you can actually furnish it almost free of cost. But let me tell you the comparison of rent between an unfurnished and a furnished apartment. For example, in the San Jose Bay Area, as of this year, 2016, a one-bed, one-bath apartment rents at around $2,300 per month, approximately, and if it's unfurnished. But the same apartment would rent at $2,800 per month or $3,000 per month if it's furnished. So it's almost like $500 to $800 more per month if it's furnished. Most people don't opt for furnished apartments. Usually if you go on certain websites, you can get a lot of furniture very cheap or for free. So like in Arizona, you can get a fully furnished 2-bed 1-bath apartment for just around $750 or $800 as of 2016. As an international student, it's best to get a furnished apartment close to the department. Okay. So where to get free or used furniture? You go to Craigslist.org, and there are a lot of families out there which give you used furniture for free. They even come and deliver it at your place. Yeah. And sometimes they sell it to you very cheap. Sometimes you might have to go pick it up even if it's free. It's worth it. You can buy an apartment that is unfurnished and furnish it like fully free of cost if you just look around on these websites like Craigslist, Easy Buy Furniture, Overstock.com, Walmart.com. I mean, these are stores, of course, Walmart and Overstock. So you get cheap used furniture. You can easily furnish your apartment. So if it's not furnished, it's nothing to panic about, okay? So furniture is almost free of cost. So as I said, they give you mattresses, comforters. They can even give you like a piano if they don't need it anymore. Sometimes people even give away their pianos for free, and they can give you furniture, mirrors, utensils, couches, blenders, microwaves, potted plants. They can give you everything for free. Just a lot of rich families out there on Craigslist, they just give it away free, especially if they are moving. So you can get these items like very cheap. So if it's not furnished, it's nothing to worry about. But if you are taking a mattress that is used, somebody is giving it away, make sure it doesn't have bed bugs. Please, 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 double check, triple check, get it inspected by people. Make sure it doesn't have bed bugs. The last thing you want is like getting stuck with bed bugs. So if you're going for a short-term stay for a project in a particular city, you can think about renting a hotel. Try taking Extended Stay America. So Extended Stay America is just like another hotel, but it's got a kitchenette in it. So they also give you certain utensils. So you can stay there for like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and also cook for yourself, and just buy a few groceries, and you can be very comfortable. They do housekeeping every day, so it's really nice. I mean, compared to living in an apartment, because then you have to sign a lease or go for a month-to-month lease, or you have to share with some roommate. It's a nuisance actually. Now suppose you're going to the Bay Area, California, okay, Northern California, for 3 months for an internship. Taking up an apartment might cost you about $1,200 to $1,500 in rent per month if you're sharing with 1 or 2 other people, okay? But if you go to an Extended Stay America for 1 month, it'll cost you just the same. You'll have a room for yourself with housekeeping and a kitchenette. So you can be really comfortable. So, or you can rent a low-cost hotel for just a few days and then finalize an apartment. So this is something I just want to add, okay? A lot of people, they get like married before coming abroad. That's actually a wise thing to do. Then you have a lot of advantages. Companionship, you can have a home of your own. You won't have to live with narrow-minded roommates. Well, if you watch my video about roommates, you'll know all the problems that roommates can bring. Yeah, do check out that video. And if you are married before you come abroad, sometimes you can have better financial stability if your partner supports you, and you'll have a person to care for you in case of illness or emergency. Don't expect roommates to take care of you. Most of them don't. And parents will worry less about you, and you can go out on weekends, and you can settle down earlier in life. There are a lot of advantages to getting settled earlier in life. This is just my bit of advice based on my experiences, based on the experiences of lots of my friends. So those who got married and came here, especially if they were girls, they were much safer, much happier, and much more comfortable in life. That's just my bit of advice. So I hope I gave you a lot of information and advice about housing options abroad, and wish you good luck in finding good housing. Thank you.